Hello viewers, we have started with the discussion on properties of glucose in our previous lecture, and I had discussed with you reactions of glucose with HCN and hydroxylamine. I had also introduced you to the reaction of glucose with phenylhydrazine, and we found that phenylhydrazine glucose reacts with excess of phenylhydrazine, resulting in formation of ozazone. And this reaction involves, if we talk of the mechanism of the reaction, it involves 3 steps. That is, in first step, glucose reacts with phenylhydrazine to form phenylhydrazone. In the second step, the aldehyde group, the OH group at the second carbon, is converted into a ketonic group, and this involves a rearrangement reaction which is known as Amadori rearrangement. And in the third step, the carbonyl group so generated reacts with the third molecule of phenylhydrazine to form ozazone. And now I would like to discuss the mechanism in detail with you. And as you can see on your screens, in the first step of the reaction, phenylhydrazine, that is this one molecule, that is the first molecule of phenylhydrazine, reacts with glucose. And when it reacts with glucose, it reacts with the aldehyde group. And this first step is a condensation reaction, in which we know that this hydrogen which is attached to nitrogen is acidic in nature, since it is attached to a more electronegative atom. So this hydrogen, these two atoms react, and the oxygen atom from here are eliminated as water molecule, and a double bond is formed between this nitrogen and this carbon here. So what do we have? We have CH double bond N, NHPH. pH means this, pH is the abbreviation for the phenyl group here, and this molecule is known as phenylhydrazone. So now sometimes in competitive exams, and which I am asking you also, and this is a question for you, that if the question is asked that when we treat glucose with one molecule of phenylhydrazine, what will be formed? So you have to answer this, and then the next question would be that you are treating glucose with excess of phenylhydrazine. So again the answer will be different. So I think the answer is quite clear that what will be formed when we carry out the reaction of one glucose with the first molecule of phenylhydrazine. Now what happens in the second step? The phenylhydrazone derivative so formed undergoes a rearrangement by which a second carbonyl function or group is generated at the second carbon. And as I have already said, that this rearrangement is known as Amadori rearrangement. See, what happens here is here tautomerism takes place. So when tautomerism takes place here, that means that this group is electron withdrawing. So the bond between carbon and hydrogen migrates from here to form a double bond between this carbon and hydrogen. And now see, if there is a double bond between carbon and carbon here, the double bond will be between carbon and carbon, and we have a double bond here also. That means the valency of carbon is 5, which is not possible. So what happens immediately is that these electrons, that is pi electrons, will migrate onto this nitrogen. Now this nitrogen will have a negative charge on it. Since it has a negative charge on it, this proton migrates from here to this nitrogen, right? So this is what we get here in the first step. That is what happens. These electrons between the carbon and the hydrogen are shifting here because of tautomerism, and now resulting in the double bond between these two carbons, and these pi electrons will move on to this nitrogen, and this proton will make a bond with NH, resulting in this intermediate. Now here we have now Amadori rearrangement. What happens here is that this nitrogen here, what will happen here, that this oxygen being more electronegative than hydrogen will pull the electrons towards itself, as a result of which a double bond is generated here, and these electrons will move from here to here. So when they are moving from here to here, what we find is that we have a double bond between this and this carbon and this nitrogen, and you know, again, the valency of nitrogen cannot be 4. So what happens here in next step is that this group here, this nitrogen, will take the electrons from here, and it will this bonding pair of electrons, and it will pick up a proton from here, and what we find that aniline, first molecule of aniline, will be eliminated here. So this is what happens during Amadori rearrangement, that is, first tautomerism takes place, resulting in formation of this intermediate, and then this intermediate undergoes Amadori rearrangement, resulting in generation of the carbonyl group at the second carbon and the elimination of aniline here. Now what happens in the next step? Now this phenyl hydrazine reacts with the newly generated carbonyl group to form a ozazone derivative, right? So what happens here now? Again, this we've already generated in the next step, in the previous step where we've eliminated this aniline. Now what happens in the next step is that NH2 from here, from phenyl hydrazine, and hydrogen from this will react with this molecule, will react, and this NH2 from here, second molecule, will react with the carbonyl group here. Now what happens when we are treating this molecule? It will react with the second molecule of phenyl hydrazine, and this again, what happens here is that condensation reaction takes place, and H2 and this oxygen is eliminated, and what we get here is we get another group here. Now in the last step, the third molecule of phenyl hydrazine reacts with this group, and what happens, this hydrogen is eliminated from here, because this is, again, this hydrogen is acidic in nature, and an NH2 forms a bond with this hydrogen, generating another group here, and in the process what we find that ammonia is eliminated. So what we have to remember in when we are bringing about this, discussing this reaction, in the first step the aldehyde group of glucose reacts with phenyl hydrazine to give us hydrazone. Then in second step, hydrazone, the phenyl hydrazine reacts with the helps in generation of this, then undergoes, this intermediate undergoes tautomerism, resulting in the formation of a carbonyl group, and then tautomerism as well as Amadori rearrangement, resulting in the formation of ketonic group, and then this ketonic group reacts with the second molecule of phenyl hydrazine, reacting in this intermediate, which then again reacts with the third molecule of phenyl hydrazine, resulting in the formation of ozazone. And similarly, we find that if we are talking of this ozazone formation, then what we find is that the ozazones are formed. Let me go back to this screen, this reaction. What we find in case of ozazone, only the first two carbons are involved. The next four carbons are not involved. Now the question is, why are only these 2 carbons involved? Why is the 3rd and the 4th carbon not involved? So you remember that a molecule will show tautomerism only if it has a alpha hydrogen, if it has an alpha hydrogen. So that means this reaction is taking place because at this carbon, if we go back to the structure of glucose, which is having an alpha hydrogen at this place, this carbon will be beta carbon, gamma carbon, and so on. So only the first 2 carbons are taking part in the reaction. The second thing that you have to remember is the ozazone so formed is stabilized through intramolecular hydrogen bonding, forming a 6-membered cyclic ring. So if you can see on your screens, what we've shown that there is an intramolecular hydrogen bonding here between these group here, between nitrogen and hydrogen here, and then it can form 2 cyclic structures, and both of the cyclic structures are stabilized by the same by intramolecular hydrogen bonding. Now the thing that we have to keep in mind, sometimes they ask you a question that glucose and mannose give us the same ozazone, or glucose and fructose give us the same ozazone. Now see, as I have been stressing again and again, I am emphasizing, it is only the first 2 carbons, that is carbon number 1 and carbon number 2, which differ from one another, right? So these are the ones which will give identical ozazone. So what I mean to say here is, now if we look into closely related sugars, that is we talk of glucose and mannose. So we know glucose and mannose are epimers, that is they differ in configuration at C2. Whereas when we are talking of glucose and fructose, they are again differing in the configuration. That is, in fructose at the 2nd carbon we have a ketonic group. So these closely related monosaccharides will give us identical ozazones. Right? Why will they give us identical ozazones? Because it is only the carbon number 1 and 2 are involved in ozazone formation. And Amadori rearrangement, please remember, does not occur beyond C2 carbon, that is the 2nd carbon. So as you can see on your screens, to explain it further, I have shown that the reaction is taking place only at 1st, 2nd carbon in fructose, 1st and 2nd carbon in D-glucose, and at 1st and 2nd carbon in D-mannose. And what we find that these are at rest of the carbons, if you look into the structure, the configuration is same. That is at the 3rd carbon in all the 3, H is on the right hand side, OH is on the left hand side. On 4th carbon, again OH is on the right hand side and H is on the left hand side. And of course on the 5th carbon, which tells us about the configuration of the molecule, all the structures, all the 3 molecules have OH on the right hand side. That means the structures here are same, and this is the first 2 carbons in case of glucose, in place of D-fructose, that is CH2OH and CO. In case of glucose and mannose, it is CHO, CHOH and CHOCOHH, which are differing in configuration at this place where the reaction is taking place. So that means all these monosaccharides will give us the same ozazone derivatives. And we know ozazone derivatives are yellow colored crystalline solids. And the next thing that you have to remember, that it is only the reducing sugars which will form ozazone derivatives. That is, non-reducing sugars are not able to form ozazone derivatives because they do not have an OH group attached to the anomeric carbon. So since they do not have an OH group attached to the anomeric carbon, when we are talking of a cyclic structure, they will not be able to reduce other compounds, right? So only the reducing sugars will give us the ozazone derivatives. That is, if I talk of sucrose, which is a non-reducing sugar, since in its anomeric carbon of carbon and anomeric carbon of fructose is involved in bond formation, it will not form a ozazone derivative. So now what we go on to, you have to remember that glucose, fructose and mannose will give us the same ozazone derivative, right? And the non-reducing sugars will not give us ozazone derivatives. Please remember, this I'll be discussing in detail also, that is when we talk of an aqueous solution of glucose, what we know is that in that case there is equilibrium between the alpha form of glucose, beta form of glucose and the open chain structure. And this alpha form of glucose and the beta form of glucose are the anomeric forms, that is, they are the cyclic structures, which we will be discussing in great details in my next lecture. Now let us look into the oxidation reactions of glucose. Please remember, the oxidation reactions are given only again by reducing sugars, because they have a, if I talk of glucose, glucose has an aldehyde group. So when we treat aldehyde group with a mild oxidizing agent like bromine water, it undergoes oxidation to form an acid. And this acid is known as aldonic acid. So what you have to remember is that when we are talking of aldonic acid, how do we come to this term aldonic acid? You will drop the word Se of the carbohydrate, of the monosaccharide, and add the word nic, Nic. So that means the aldonic acid of glucose will be D-gluconic acid. The aldonic acid of mannose will be D-mannonic acid. Now when we are talking in oxidation in terms of organic chemistry, what you have to keep in mind is that oxidation means removal of hydrogen or addition of oxygen. So when we talk of methanol, so we say that methanol undergoes oxidation because methanol has alpha hydrogen in it, and we remove that hydrogen and we are able to convert methanol to formaldehyde. And then we get an aldehyde group. So this is the second part in aldehyde group. So when we treat this aldehyde group with a mild oxidizing agent, that is when we treat a carbohydrate with a mild oxidizing agent, only the CHO group will be oxidized. On the other hand, if we were using a strong oxidizing agent like concentrated nitric acid, then see, as I just now told you the example of methanol, which is an primary alcohol. In this case also what we find that this H and this H will be removed from here, and then we will add an oxygen here, which will give us a aldehyde group. So if we are using mild oxidizing agents like bromine water, Felling's reagent, Tollen's reagent, Benedict's reagent, what you have to remember is that you have to simply add a oxygen between this C and H, and what we will get is this aldehyde group will be converted into a carboxylic group, right? So this is the test for a reducing sugar, that is glucose will decolorize bromine water. Glucose also, please remember, decolorizes Tollen's reagent. And what is Tollen's reagent? Tollen's reagent is ammonical silver nitrate, and in this reaction also glucose is oxidized to gluconic acid, and silver oxide is the reagent which is reacting with glucose. To make our life simple, we carry out the reaction of glucose with Ag2O. This is reduced to silver, that is metallic silver, which deposits at the base of the boiling tube or the test tube, and the glucose is again oxidized to gluconic acid. Please remember, we are carrying out the reactions with mild oxidizing agents. Therefore, CH2OH is not oxidized here. And similarly, if we carry out the reaction with Fehling solution, then what we find that Fehling solution is sodium ammonium tartrate solution, and from this it is the cupric oxide which reacts with glucose. It oxidizes this aldehyde group to a carboxylic group, and we get a red precipitate of cuprous oxide here. So this is again an oxidation reaction, and what you have to remember is that when we are carrying out the reaction with mild oxidizing agents, it is only the CHO group which will be oxidized to a COOH group, and these mild oxidizing agents will not have any effect on any other of the hydroxyl groups. Similarly, Benedict's reagent will also convert this CHO group into a carboxylic group, and we will get a gluconic acid, and we will get a red precipitate of cuprous oxide. In Benedict reagent also, the oxidizing agent is cupric ions. Right. Now we carry out the reaction in alkaline medium. So what you have to remember is that when we are carrying out the oxidation with mild oxidizing agents, which may be bromine water, Fehling solution, Benedict's reagent, or Tollens reagent, it is this aldehyde group which is oxidized to a carboxylic group, and none of the hydroxyl groups are attacked here. And we are starting with, when we say that D-glucose, it must be very clear now, that is the OH here is on the right hand side at the highest numbered asymmetric carbon, and in D-gluconic acid also it is on the right hand side. Right. Now we go on to the next reaction, that is if we carry out the reaction with a strong oxidizing agent like nitric acid. So what happens in case of nitric acid? That nitric acid will of course oxidize this CHO group to a carboxylic group. But as I've already told you that when we are talking of organic chemistry, when we talk of oxidation, we have to remember that oxidation is removal of hydrogen and addition of oxygen. So in the first step here, as you can see on your screens, that this H, which is your alpha hydrogen, and this hydrogen will be removed, and we will get an aldehyde group. But since we are using a strong oxidizing agent, it will oxidize this directly to a carboxylic group, and what we get here is a D-glucaric acid. And how do we name this D-glucaric acid? We take an aldose, we drop the word OSE, and we come to the term and we add ARIC. So we'll start with mannose, it will be mannaric acid, and when we are talking with glucose, it is D-glucaric acid. So glucaric, you have to remember, will have two carboxylic groups, and when we are talking of onic, that is what you have to remember in general term is, that is when we are using the term alderic. Alderic means that we have two carboxylic groups in that particular monosaccharide. That is the aldehyde group as well as the primary alcoholic group has been oxidized to a carboxylic group. Whereas when we talk of aldonic acids, onic at the end, that means it is going to be a monocarboxylic acid in which the CHO group will be oxidized to a COOH group. So this is the simple way of remembering, that is when we carry out the reaction with mild oxidizing agents, we will get aldonic acids, that is only the CHO group will be oxidized, and when we carry out the reaction with strong oxidizing agent like nitric acid, we will get alderic acids. Now the next reaction, which is again very important, is the reduction reaction. That is when we carry out the reduction of glucose. So what we find that this CHO group is reduced to a primary alcoholic group, and reduction is carried out with hydrogen in presence of amalgamated sodium, or we can even carry out the reaction with sodium borohydride. In case of sodium borohydride, it is only the aldehyde group which will be reduced to a primary alcoholic group. And now when we bring out about the reaction, we get a glucitol. What is glucitol? What you have to remember is, how do we name this? If this was aldose, we would have dropped the word ose and added the word itol to it. So when you add the word itol, that means it is a alcohol. And now when this alcohol here, when we are generating an alcoholic group, so this molecule is also known as sorbitol, and this is an example of alcoholic sugar. And this is also known as sorbitol because this glucitol was first isolated from plant sorbus, and because of that it is also known as sorbitol. And as I've said that this sorbitol is a alcoholic sugar, it is sweet in nature. So when it is sweet in nature, it is used as a artificial sweetener also, and it does not add calories. The next reaction, if we carry out the reduction of glucose with strong oxidizing agents. Now I just like to go back to this reduction. When we are carrying out the reduction with sodium borohydride, what we find in case of glucose, we will get only one alcohol, which is sorbitol. But when we will discuss fructose, we will find that fructose will give us two diastereomers, because in that case the reduction will be carried out at the ketonic carbon, which is the second carbon. So we will be generating a chiral carbon there. So in this reaction, glucose and fructose will differ. Now supposing we are carrying out the reaction with a strong oxidizing agent, which is HI and red phosphorus. And we know when we carry out the reaction with HI and red phosphorus, HI and red phosphorus has a tendency to reduce all the functional groups such as carboxylic, aldehydic or alcoholic to corresponding methylene groups. So when we carry out the reaction of glucose with HI and red phosphorus, what we find that all the groups, that is aldehydic as well as the 5-hydroxyl groups, are reduced, and what we get is N-hexane and isohexane. In my next before winding up the lecture, I would just like to tell you that in my next lecture we shall be discussing the reactions of glucose due to presence of hydroxyl groups in it. And you know that hydroxyl groups have the tendency to undergo esterification reactions, that is, glucose will react with acetic anhydride to give us an ester. Then we will also see another reaction of glucose with calcium hydroxide, that is in which it will give us calcium glucosate. And the most important reaction that we will be discussing will be the reaction of epimerization, that is how do we convert, or how is one epimer converted into the other, that is how is glucose converted into mannose. And for this lecture again, I had referred to the books of Carey and books of Waite, and you can also refer to these books. Thank you.